Hello, and welcome to Zoomed In with Alexis. I'm your host, Alexis. Today, my guest is Peter Brosius, Artistic Director of the Tony Award-winning Children's Theater Company of Minneapolis. Peter has served as Artistic Director of Children's Theater Company, or CTC, since 1997, directing the world premieres of Dr. Seuss's The Snitches the Musical, The Last Firefly, Seed Folks, Animal Dance, and many others, producing more than 187 productions just with the CTC. He is the recipient of a number of awards, including TCG's Alan Schneider Directors Award and honors from the LA Drama Critics Circle Award and Dramalog. Peter's work returns to the stage with Alice in Wonderland, playing February 13th through March 31st of this year. Peter, thank you so much for being here with me today.
It's a pleasure, Alexis. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I'm interested to get into the work that you've been doing for almost 30 years now with the Children's Theater, but I'm curious to hear if you yourself were a child of the theater.
Yes, I was very fortunate in that my mother was an amateur actress. And so it was very common for two or three of us kids to be in a show at the same time or to be in a show with her. And so we'd slam down some dinner, rush off to rehearsal, maybe one rehearsal, maybe several rehearsals. And it was from her that I sort of uh, fell in love with the theater and fell in love with the idea of this community of people coming together to make something beautiful, you know?
Awesome, awesome. So I'm actually a fellow Hampshire alum as well.
Yay!
So I'm also very curious to hear how you heard about Hampshire College.
Okay. I mean, the long and short of it was, let me think. I'd been going to Berkeley and I had planned to be a lawyer, and that had stopped making sense. So I sort of dropped out and moved to Europe for a year and worked on kibbutzim and farms in Denmark and tried to get work on fishing boats in Norway and did all that. And while there, I said, well, I should probably get a bit of an education. And so I came back to the East Coast, and I think a person I met in Greece had mentioned Hampshire. And so I came back to the East Coast, and things were a little different then. So I hitchhiked all over the East Coast and looked at about 5 different colleges, Hampshire being one of them. And I think I kind of fell in love with it because it felt like it was going to be the most challenging of all the schools that I saw. I said, this may be the hardest. And so I decided to apply and got in and had a really important 2.5 years. I didn't do 4 because I did a little bit of Berkeley before then. So it was a remarkable experience in so many ways.
Wow.
You know,
Wow. So,
because
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Can I ask what was your graduating year?
75.
So what was like the landscape at Hampshire at that time?
Well, what was amazing is there were people who had accepted to go there when there was not a building built. Okay. So they said, yeah, I'd like to come there because, it started in 70. And so, they'd come aboard. I got there in the winter of 72, And so you look at these people and you go like, "You're some brave folks, You accepted this promise that they would build a building or two and there would be a program and there'd be some faculty and all that. And so there were some great people. What was great about it was the promise of real interdisciplinary, real collaborative work, real meetings with your professors, real befriending your professors. All that was true. It was just terrific. And, back then, like I was doing a lot of dance, and the dance studio was on the 4th floor of the library. And the dance studio had no walls. It had a curtain around it. And on the outside of the curtain were all the sculpture and painting studios. So,
Wow.
you'd be working on a piece till 11 o'clock at night, and then you go sit and watch one of your classmates, one of your friends, making a sculpture, making a painting, and then you'd incorporate that into your piece. And so there were things about that were just lovely. And an
Wow.
important thing that Hampshire had that was so brilliant was they received some money from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and you could apply for it as a student, and there was a little pot of money. And so I was able to get several of those pots. And one, I thought maybe I'd be a movement therapist. So I went to a conference, I believe, in Indianapolis, and, spent a weekend immersing myself in that world. And then when I was going to do my Div 3, I decided I wanted to teach a course instead of writing a paper. So I and then being, a little bit of an overachiever, I decided not only to teach a course, but have a lecture series and a film series and a course that I taught.
Wow.
And so I got money from Hampshire and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund to go research. It was on political theater, and then a lecture series involving a whole bunch of people from New York and scholars and activists and artists to come up and give talks and show their films, and then lectures and films and all that. And I got to spend a summer in New York, immersing myself at the Lincoln Center Library for the Performing Arts, researching the history of political theater, both in the United States and in Europe and all over the world, and came back and used all that to teach my class. So it was, it taught you to like seize opportunities and make your own work, which was not a bad thing if you plan to have a career in the arts.
Yeah, yeah. And so I guess if there you gave a lot speaking to this, but I guess was there anything else about your experience at Hampshire that you feel like you draw from in your work now, or that stuck with you?
Um, One is, I mean, Hampshire is hugely entrepreneurial. That you can make it, you can create relationships. That it doesn't have to be sort of this prepackaged thing. You can imagine your own world. As I was creating programs in both dance and political theater. As one thing. That's not like the norm in most colleges. And so I got to take classes in dance both at Hampshire and at Smith, and create lots of pieces, work in the electronic music studio. And then I guess the things that really stuck with me were the personal relationships I made with faculty. That you're invited into someone's house, you're hanging out with them. And one of those experiences, there was a professor, Andy Robbenbach, who was a scholar of German politics, German political theory, German critical thinking. And he had a friend named Jack Zipes, who was also one of his co-editors on a leftist journal called New German Critique. And Andy invited me over to his house or his apartment, or somehow I met Jack. I don't really remember. And we hit it off. And Jack was busy translating work from perhaps the most important theater for young people in the world, a company in Berlin called the Grips Theater. And so he opened my mind to this company that was making work about the real lives of young people, politically engaged work that really spoke to the concerns, a lot around class. And out of that came a fascination with it. So then I hopped an Icelandic Air flight for $100 and went to Berlin and showed up at their doorstep and said hello, and then just hung out with them for months and traveled with them and saw every show, and just happened to be in Germany at a time when it was the epicenter of the world in terms of new theater for young people that was radical, innovative, surprising, controversial. And that was all because of Jack. Jack handed me plays to translate, or handed me plays that he translated. I produced one down in Holyoke, wow. At a community center, and that just got me really interested in this field. And then I saw artists in Germany because of Jack's encouragement to. I just saw artists who were making work that was passionate and smart and clear and profound, and getting them in trouble with the authorities. So it was really exciting.
Wow, that's really awesome. And so thank you for sort of giving us an insight into how you are sort of entering this realm of children's theater. But I guess I'm very curious to hear what unique, like, sort of wins and challenges do you face in that realm of children's theater in the production end?
Well, I work at a very large theater now. So I work at an extraordinary theater, with a $13 million budget, a full-time staff of about 83 different theaters, scene shop, prop shop, costume shop, wig shop, So I'm very blessed. I work at a major, major, major institution that gets, major press coverage, major funding. So I face the challenges of anyone who runs a theater at this point in our time, which is that it's hard, with corporate funding drying up and, audience behavior being complicated. It's a very interesting time to run a theater, costs go up, union costs go up. We're a union house, and yet there's no great new sources of money. And so it's a challenge. Some of the specific challenges that I faced over the years, and I've been doing this a long time now because I've been at CTC for 27 years. Before that, I ran a theater in Honolulu for about 2 years. And before that, I was at the Mark Taper Forum running a program at the Mark Taper Forum for about 10 years, and on the artistic staff there. When I started, there were very few foundations that would support theater for young people, very few. And so I made it kind of a personal mission to say that is offensive, insane, and absolutely unacceptable. So I wrote letters and contacted every foundation that was saying they had in their bylaws, we don't support theater for young people, and just said, how can you disenfranchise an entire population of people, the most poor, the most abused, those without voting rights, those without income? How are you going to disenfranchise that group of serious professional artists who have dedicated their lives to making this work? And, one by one, there's like one foundation that I haven't won yet. And it irks me. I won't mention them on this, but, I've tried. I've done so much to try and get the prohibitions out of their bylaws. But 99% of the other foundations now have no restrictions. And so it was a tougher time. There were places, getting press coverage was tougher. That's changed. It's changed. Not in all communities. There's still challenges. But, my situation is sort of blessed. I work with, leading designers, leading actors, leading directors, both in the United States and in Europe and around the world. So I can't complain because I get to work with really remarkable artists who care deeply about the work and deeply about making extraordinary work. So
yeah, that's all you can really hope for, right? That's
oh my God,
amazing.
yes. Oh my God, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the other thing that's interesting about this is it does ask a slightly different thing. It asks the same things in terms of making extraordinary design, great dramaturgy, beautiful writing, incredible work with the actors. All those are the same. But it also asks something else. Because sometimes in theater, you're making work for yourself. You're making work that just matters really deeply personally to you and maybe two of your friends, and with this, it also asks you to have a generosity of spirit, because not only do you have to make work that's going to make you proud, but you have to make work that's going to truly engage and truly speak to an audience that is different than you, that is younger than you, that is no less smart than you, but you have to respect them. You have to come at it with great respect. You have to come at it in a way with love, because you want to bring them along. You want to give them a transformational experience. You want to give them something that is going to impact their lives forever. Because if you do it well, you will make them love this art form, which is a great art form in the theater. If you do it poorly and shoddily and with condescension or laziness, you will turn them off to this work for the rest of their lives because they'll be bored. They have so many other options. Lordy, lordy, lord. They've got a universe in their iPhone,
Yeah.
They got more TikTok videos than you could watch until you die.
Yeah.
And then at home, 47,000 streaming channels. So
Right.
you've got to make something that's alive and vital with high stakes and clarity and a purpose.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've produced, children's theater pieces ranging from, the well-known A Year with Frog and Toad to lesser-known titles. What do you look for in a piece then, especially when you're hoping to, reach these folks when you're deciding on what to produce?
So there's actually two questions being asked there, maybe. One is, how do you plan a season of work? And the other is, what's the work you commission to develop from scratch? And is that a fair estimation?
Sure.
Yeah, and so let's start with the work we commission, all right? With the work we commission, we almost always start with the artist. It's a love affair. I see your work, I read your work, I love it. I want you to make something for this audience. Previous experience with this audience is not required. I'd say 95% of the people we commission have never made work for a multi-generational audience. They're just good theater makers. And what's that mean? It means someone who has an original voice, who, makes smart, bold, deep, complicated, rich, highly theatrical work. And that process is everything from, hi, what interests you? Tell me about yourself. We try and find, and it may be that they have wonderful ideas. It may be they have no ideas. They may say, Are there things you'd like me to think about? Are there books? Are there films? Are there songs? Are there poems? Are there issues? And so I may make lists knowing something about their work of here are 5 books. Here are some things happening in our community we might want to make something about, you know, and we talk. And in my case, I I I don't I don't just hand out a commission like a candy. I want to commission something I'm going to produce because I don't do this to fill a box in a grant application. I commissioned X number of people. That I don't care about that. What I care about is getting work that's going to go on our stage that's going to change lives. So in that case, what that means is I have to fall in love with your idea. And you may have one idea and I don't fall in love with it, and that may end our relationship. Or we may have a long conversation that may take months as we try and find something that you're truly passionate about, I'm passionate about, and that I want the theater to do because it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take soul and heart and brain and money. And so we're going to invest a lot, and it may take years, multiple readings, multiple workshops, many conversations about the dramaturgy. And so I don't want to do that. Life is short. I don't want to do that unless it's something I love and I believe will make a difference. Okay. Yeah. So that's the commissioning side. And then we move heaven and earth. We find partners, we find money. You say, you want to take a trip to so-and-so to do research. We try and find the money. You say, you just need to sit in a rehearsal room away from your family or your job or whatever it is and just write. So we'll provide you with snacks and coffee and close the doors or open them and take you out to dinner and do that. Or you say, I need to hear it with the actors. So we'll do that. Or I need a workshop. I need a choreographer. I need a great dramaturg. So we try within the limits of our possibility to find everything that you need so that you can make the best work you want to do. And then we produce it. And we produce it fully with, ideally with teams that you're excited about, that you love, and with some remarkable actors and great designers and a great, the team here is amazing in terms of our shops and, and our marketing and all that. So there's that. With a season, it's a little tricky. There's a whole set of things that we take into consideration. We are committed to 50% of our actors being BIPOC. We're committed to 50% of our work being from BIPOC perspectives. We have an acting company. So how do we give them work? That keeps them alive. We're one of the few theaters in the United States that has a full-time acting company. We have apprentices, acting apprentices, who we audition from across the country 2 a year, who we give, a salary and healthcare and then real roles. Do we have real opportunities for them? Are we making work for a multitude of ages? Is there a multitude of aesthetics? Because the theater is a big tent. And can we make rent? Will the mix of things that we're looking at sell enough that it will keep the building open? And are we creating work that responds to this moment and that provides opportunities for conversation, that stirs it up, that helps us think, that raises real questions, that gives the community a place to come together? Because as much as social media does that in one way, there's something sort of safe and distant about posting on social media that's completely different than being in a room and having conversation, and having that conversation in a multi-generational space. So that 9-year-old is saying something profound to that 35-year-old, to that 72-year-old, and you're all in conversation together about X or Y. And so that panoply of concerns that deal with, and are we bringing new work to the stage that comes out of work that we've commissioned, and we also look around the world at work that we can present. We brought in circuses from Ethiopia. I'm in conversation with a circus right now from South Africa. It's like, how do you bring in work that speaks to other cultures, other communities, and opens doors? Because if we know anything, it's that the world is getting smaller. We need to know how to talk to people who are different than we are, and we need to find ways to come together and learn from each other, because otherwise this planet is in deep trouble.
Yeah. So, I think that you've elaborated on this a lot, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that you can think of. So under your leadership, the CTC received the 2003 Regional Tony Award, which congratulations.
Thank you. It was very nice.
How does a person accomplish this?
I think, that's for a sustained body of work. And I think what it was a glorious recognition of the work that this team and this theater has done over the years, And by that, I mean supporting artists to the best that we possibly can, creating work that was, strikingly original and highly theatrical. And, and whether that was work that was as mad as imagining a lost Buster Keaton film and doing a sort of a silent film on stage with a cast of 60, to hiring one of the great postmodern dancers in the United States today, Ann Carlson, and commissioning her to create a piece of her doing improvisational dance with untrained live baby animals, like that,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and we developed it over many, many workshops, or bringing in Monique Merckx, one of the best directors in Holland, to create a deconstructed look at fairy tales with an incredible design team from the Netherlands.
Wow.
Or doing, I'm from California originally, and when I got here, one of the things that I just couldn't get was the Mississippi River. Do you know what I mean? And so I decided I have to investigate it and make a piece about it, because I look at it, when you go to the Pacific Ocean, there's a power, and like that water started in Russia or China or Japan or Korea or Okinawa. And so I said, let's do a piece about the Mississippi. And we found an artist who'd made a 3-mile long canvas of the Mississippi and created an art form called the panorama, which was like an early slideshow, and he would tour this around. They built panorama theaters in England. They were all over the United States. And so we made a piece about this young artist, John Banvard, and about the Mississippi and the myths of the Mississippi and the power of the Mississippi and the spirit of the Mississippi. And we made a beautiful piece called Mississippi Panorama, which ended with "Take Me to the River," with the Talking Heads and, Al Green, singing "Take Me to the River," And so we also do things like that, like how do you investigate the times you live in? And for example, we knew, we've had, some significant challenges and, occurrences in this community of violent interactions between the police force and African-American men. And so with the murder of George Floyd, we just knew we had to do something to bring this community together. And so we commissioned right away a playwright we'd worked with multiple times, a book by 3 child psychologists in Atlanta called Something Happened in Our Town, which was about a police-involved killing of a black man in an unnamed town, and the challenges it posed to a friendship between a black boy, and a white girl who are neighbors and their families. And so we commissioned Cheryl West, who's an extraordinary playwright. She wrote it, and we put together a team and produced it sort of in record time. We worked very fast, developed it as fast as we could, and gave Cheryl the support we could to get it to where it was. And then we had extraordinary public discussions after every single performance. And it was wild, because sometimes you go to a theater piece and they have these public discussions and you can't wait to leave. No one wanted to leave. They just wanted a place to talk. And we realized, there's no place to talk. It's not going to happen in schools. It may or may not happen in your religious institution. There's no village square. Like, my wife's from Italy, and at the evening you go to the Piazza del Duomo and everyone's talking about the news, and you could just strike. We don't have that anywhere. It may happen online, but again, it's a different level of satisfaction,
Yeah, totally. So what I'm hearing from you is a great acknowledgement and appreciation for so many things, your cast and your crew and those that you're working with, but also for the time period, for current events, and then also for your audience. So I think that all of that, can culminate into of course, someone as great as you who's award
Oh,
winning. But I guess is there any other advice that you might give to stage artists looking to become directors, or what skills does someone need to cultivate in order to become an artistic director?
um, I guess I would say make the work you want to make. Life is short. Make the work that matters most to you. Um, because whatever you make is hard. And if you're making something you don't believe in, it's as hard and difficult, and you'll stay up as late and worry as much and struggle as much as if as when you're making something that you're deeply passionate about. So make the work you want to make. Make it now. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait till everything's perfect. Don't wait till there's gobs of money or an incredible institution. If you have to sort of hustle and put it together, do that. Know that every single person that you're going to encounter is essential in a theater, is essential to making the work. I mean, the overused phrase, it takes a village, is absolutely true. If you don't treat with respect your stage crew who are sweeping that stage to make sure there's no nails in it, that if they don't care, our staff cares deeply, but if they don't care because they're treated shoddily and a screw is left on that stage and an actor steps on it, that show's over, you stop. Or, how do you make everyone part of the journey? How do you imbue not only the theater, your cast, your crew, your creative team with the reason to do the play? Why is it essential? Why are we doing the work we're doing now? And make sure that, that you live your mission, what drives you, because it's not easy. You never have enough money. You never have enough time. Even when you're a big organization like ourselves, there's never enough money. There's never enough time. And so, and then surround yourself with people that inspire you, challenge you, and are infinitely smarter than you are, because then you're going to learn from them endlessly.
Yeah.
I mean, the things, I guess, what I try and do is, and I do this sometimes okay and sometimes not so okay, which is try and run the theater in a way like a rehearsal room, which is that, you prepare, you do your work, but when I'm in a rehearsal room, I'll prepare for months and months and months for the show. But I'm also obsessed by being completely open to what happens in the room, because I'm guaranteed, no matter how much I prep, there's a better idea in the room than what I came up with on my own. And so I try and make sure that I'm open to that. Same way in an institution. You go into a staff meeting about X or Y or this collaboration or that collaboration or this project or that project. There's definitely a better idea than yours, And so just making sure that you've made space for that people feel safe and comfortable expressing that idea, because if you don't make that space, the work won't be extraordinary, because, I mean, maybe you're a genius. I don't consider myself a genius by any stretch of the imagination, but I am someone who can hopefully cultivate and curate ideas and then hopefully try and move it forward.
Yeah.
So make work all the time if you want to be an artistic director, and learn as much as you can about everything, because everything you touch can inform you. And whether that's how to deal with people, how to understand history, how to understand your community, how to build alliances in your community, how to listen with respect, how to shut up, and stop talking sometimes, because there's great wisdom out there that if you're the one who's talking all the time, you're not going to hear, So, and don't be afraid to make decisions, and don't be afraid to listen hard and be humble,
Yeah.
And so you have to do both. And that in a day, I guess the radical part of these jobs is in the same day, you can talk to someone, an artist who doesn't have health care and is not sure where they're going to make rent, and then have drinks or a dinner with a person worth $500 million who's a friend of the theater, to, in my case, a conversation with the parent of a child who is struggling, to working with a student actor, to working, with adult professionals who are new in their career or have won Tony Awards. So the varieties of individuals that you'll be talking to and working with are radically different. And you
Mm,
have to provide space and respect for every single one of them.
yeah.
And so if you can't do that, it's a hard job, you know?
Yeah,
And
totally.
if you can do that, you'll learn a lot and you'll be inspired a lot and you'll be given great gifts.
That's beautiful. So you were you had mentioned this before. You were previously the artistic director of the Honolulu Theater for Youth,
Yeah.
and now you're the soon-to-be former artistic director of the CTC. You put so many years of careful work into these organizations, receiving various accolades. It must not have been an easy decision to make for you. What
It
inspired you to
wasn't.
move on from these positions, and what's next for you?
Well, I moved on from Hawaii, which I loved being there. It was so interesting, so complicated, such a gift to be there. And, um, you know, um, also as a white man to be a minority in, an Asian Pacific land was instructive and powerful and important. Um, and also just to get access to that incredibly rich culture was such a gift. I came here because of the opportunity to try and make and change the flagship theater
Mm.
for young people in North America. Um, and I think I made the decision because I love making work. I love being in the room with actors. I love working with playwrights and helping them find articulate and fulfill their vision. Um, and yet there are aspects of this that I've done a lot,
Mm.
and and so and so some of those aspects are generally on the admin side. you know, um, I felt like I've done this. I'm not sure want to keep doing this.
Mm.
I love making work and I love interacting with the audiences and interacting with actors. But there was a part of me that I just didn't want to go out when I was tired or bitter or sad or frustrated. I wanted to go out loving the work and loving the institution.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I think about it every day. If I gone too soon, I'm excited. I've got so many projects here in development, but the decision was made. New leadership is coming in, and I'll be moving on with my life.
Yeah, so what's next for you?
I don't know. I'm interested. I mean, there are things about other creative forms that fascinate me. Theater is both gorgeously collaborative, wonderfully collaborative, a whole room full of bright people coming up with ideas, but it's also a giant machine. It takes a lot of work, from
Mhm.
making sure every prop, costume, marketing brochure. And I'm married to a fiction writer, formerly a playwright, and watching that courage of that individual voice. And so we go to a lot of, not as many as I'd like, but we go to a fair number of readings, fiction readings. And I just love that, how personal that is. And so I'm interested in becoming a beginner again and writing. And so that interests
Mm.
me because, I've been in a position of leadership for a while. And the idea of not having that and being sort of a rank beginner with no training makes me laugh and makes me a little bit happy
No,
and
yeah.
terrified. So I like that. So I'm interested in trying to do some fiction writing. It's really hard, and I've never studied it. I'm a theater person, and so I'm interested in that, and and also finding ways of being of service to the field. I do get calls periodically, sort of for people asking for advice on various issues of being an artistic director or being a leader, and if that can be useful, I'm happy to do that. Um, um, and then I'm trying to figure out ways to be of service. I've tried to live a life of activism, and so trying to figure out what's the way that's going to be that I can be useful and that I can make a contribution. So I don't
Mm.
know the answer yet. I plan to do some of that thinking this year, but I'm so busy. I'm directing 3 shows and working, on directing the fundraiser and taking a group to New York of donors and developing 12 projects. So
Mm.
it's incredibly busy.
Yeah.
And some of those projects are with very newer writers, and some of those are with hugely experienced writers. And some of those are, with commercial producers, very large projects, and some of those are very intimate projects. And so they're all really, really, really different.
Right. Okay.
So it's a gift of of busyness and a challenge of this time, but I will hit June 30th, and I'm sure there'll be a huge surprises as I navigate the next chapter. But it'll be fine. It'll be great.
Wow. So I know we don't have very much time, so I just have one last question for you. In your last production with the CTC, what made you decide on Alice in Wonderland, and what is maybe unique about your telling of this classic story?
So what I love about this piece, it's a piece about curiosity, courage, resilience, openness. It's a piece about entering unknown worlds and and trying to make sense of it and not rejecting it and trying to join it, which I think is a good metaphor for the world we're in now. I mean, driving to work, hearing about AI and the world that we'll be in, where, it's going to be both an ethical, political, economic, criminal conundrum of stuff, and you can't stop it. You can't put it back in the box. It's here. And so Alice is like, she's landed in one world after another. And so encouraging that curiosity and making sure that the actress playing Alice, we have two that alternate, just making sure that it's with that spirit of courage and curiosity that we greet the world. Part of what's also a joy for me is also honors a particular designer that we had the pleasure of working with, who illness took from us far too early, Skip Mercier, who made just a beautiful design. It's stunning and poetic and wild and bold and ridiculously imaginative, filled with, miniatures and sort of circus tricks and all kinds of things. And so, and the other thing we did is, I had this idea that because the world is so odd, that at odd and unusual places, people should burst into song for maybe 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So the first time I did it, I'd just like come up with a song and sing it in my phone and hand it off to my composer. But the song would literally be like, "Great to see you." That's the song. And not chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, any of that. And it was just like, song out, gone. And so in our first production, we had about 68 of them. We've added about 10. I have a goal of trying to hit 80 for whatever reason. So that there are these things where it's just like burst into song and it's over. And it just, like it doesn't take 2 or 3 minutes to build and circle back and all that stuff. It's just like in and out. And so it's got this weird kind of musicality to it that just leaps and surprises you. And we have a live one person playing about 14 instruments who Foley's the whole show.
Wow.
And so we're doing that. And so, and we're invoking all kinds of, sort of musical styles, echoing Tom, like this, like a Tom Waits style thing, and scat singing and all kinds of manners that are just radically different. So that's part of this production as well, and then a huge amount of audience interaction. We're just adding new audience interaction moments almost every rehearsal. Like, we're going into the audience, we're getting them out of their seats, we're having them sing along, we're having them do things, and we're not done. So part of that is like, how do you I like theater that's alive, that you can't see on the screen, that's not like film or television.
Yeah.
And so what makes it bloody unique? What makes it bloody alive? What makes it an experience that you can't believe you just had?
Yeah. And it sounds like anybody who wants to be able to really fully experience it, they should go ahead and get a ticket and see the show. Well, thank you.
It's going to be some fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here today with me, Peter, and sharing your insights into your life and your artistry. Alice in Wonderland is on stage from February 13th to March 31st. For more information, including ticket sales, go ahead and check out the Children's Theater website at childrenstheater.org, spelled the European way, so THEATRE. That's childrenstheater.org. This has been Zoomed In with Alexis, co-produced by Amherst Media. See you next time, and thank you.